Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Svapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Kadāmayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sujivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you so much, Lajavati Mataji, for your kind introduction. Our thoughts, our prayers are with you. Tapas Prabhu's greatness. Okay, I was to make an announcement.
Really sorry to interrupt. Many devotees are standing at the door, so some of us can come out, can squeeze in a bit and also move at the front, and they can come in and sit. And there's a Toyota car standing parked right in front of the temple. Whoever has parked that car, please park somewhere else on the sides, because there's construction going on and people are being disturbed and there can be some problem because of that. So there's a Toyota car. Whoever has that, please park it somewhere else.
They can get fined, yeah.
Yeah.
Or it can be moved. Taken away forcefully. We have a lot of space here. Devotees at the back, please come. We have created a lot of space.
So yes, Tapas Prabhu's greatness is also reflected in his good wife. Husband and wife are a partnership, and so their service is intertwined, and everything that we will glorify Tapas Prabhu for and remember him for, Mataji also shares in all of that glorification, because they were a team, they did it together. So even though Tapas Prabhu is no longer with us, that we have Lajavati Mataji, I think we're very, very fortunate. Once there was a conference of sages, and they were asking the question, who is the greatest? So one of the sages put his hand up and he said, the sky is the greatest because the sky covers everything. Another sage put his hand up and said, no, no, the clouds are greater because the clouds can cover the sky. And then another sage put his hand up and said, no, no, the wind is greater because the wind can move the clouds. And then another sage put his hand up and said, no, no, the mountain is greater because the mountain can stop the wind. And then another sage put his hand up and said, no, no, the earth is greater because the earth is holding the mountain up. And then another sage put his hand up and said, you're all wrong. God is greater because God is holding the earth. And then God appeared and said, you're all wrong because my devotee has captured me within his heart. Sadhavo hridayam mayam sadhunam hridayam tvaham madanyetena jananti naham debhyo managapi. The Bhagavatam tells us, Krishna says, the sadhus, they are within my heart, and I am within the hearts of the sadhus. Madanyatena jananti, they don't know anything but me, and I don't know anything but them. And so it's hard for us to understand the full extent of the glories of the Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas are the hope for the world. They are the hope in our life. And therefore, so much of our culture is to understand how valuable every single Vaishnava is. And therefore, when a Vaishnava leaves the world, then it's a great calamity actually. And simultaneously, it's the greatest glory. As Mataji was saying, it's surprisingly auspicious. We actually feel some incredible inspiration. In one sense, it's very, very beautiful as well. They say just like the rising of the sun is very, very beautiful, and sometimes just as beautiful is when the sun sets. Because that also has its own charm and beauty, because someone shows the final lesson of how to leave the world. But yes, one day we all have to leave the world. When His Holiness Kadamba Maharaj was passing away, just a few weeks before he passed away, I was in the room with him, and he said, you know, when I was a kid, I loved to play musical chairs. I don't know how many of you ever played musical chairs in your childhood years. But he said, I love to play musical chairs. And I said, why? He said, because even when I was a kid and I would play musical chairs, I would realize that there was something reflected in life that came from this game. He said, because when I was playing musical chairs, I realized the first thing is, in this world, everything changes. And he said, the second thing I realized from musical chairs is at one moment, you lose the chair. And then you have to exit the game. And in that sense, you can think of life like a game of musical chairs. We take everything very, very seriously, but everything is always changing. Our health is changing, our relationships are changing, our fortunes are changing. The only constant in the world is that it's always changing. And the other theme is that one day our time comes. Ahani ahani bhutani gachanti hayamalayam. Yudhishthira said to Yamaraj, the most amazing thing in the world is that every day people are dying. But I think I will live here forever. Kimaschariyam ataparam. What can be more amazing than this? So, we are here today to remember Tapas Prabhu. Naturally, when someone leaves the world, then you kind of look through your messages and you remember the communication you had with them. So when I heard the news that he had left the world, and I was looking through my phone at all the different exchanges we had, and the last two were actually very, very beautiful, the last two messages he sent to me. The second last message he sent to me was a message he sent his message out about how he had this condition in the lungs, and he was praying to the Vaishnavas. So I think maybe many of you received that. I also received that. So I replied to him saying, we're praying that you have many more years. The world needs you. And then he replied to me and he said, actually, I don't mind leaving this world in one sense. When the time comes, the time comes. But he said, in another sense, I don't want to leave the world because this Sankirtan mission is too inspiring. He said, I want to be part of it. I want to be in that adventure. I want to be in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Therefore, it's too inspiring. I want to stay here. That's why I'm praying to the Vaishnavas, that may I be able to stay here. So that was very nice. And then the last message he sent to me, he found out I was coming to Sweden, so then he sent me a message and he said, will you come to Brahmakund before you go to Almvik? And I said, if you order me, I'm your servant, of course. And he said, please come to Brahmakund. He said, I won't be able to make it because my health is not good. But he said, I want you to come to Brahmakund because it will give pleasure to the Vaishnavas. And I just want to see that the devotees in Brahmakund are always happy. That was his message. And I thought, so nice. I mean, I don't know how much pleasure I can give, but I thought it was so nice that he knew he wasn't going to come here. He knew his time was limited. He knew he was probably on the way out. But he was thinking of the happiness of all of you. And that's Vaishnav. So Tapas Prabhu was an incredible person. I always remember him because, of course, I was based at the manor. And I would see him practically every year when Radhanath Maharaj would come. Tapas Prabhu would always be there to see Radhanath Maharaj. And when someone first told me his name, Tapas, because obviously my name before was Sutapa. So when we met for the first time, we talked about that. I said, your name is Tapas, but my name is Sutapa. Su me, I was just joking with him, of course. I said, because Su means very great. I said, you are Tapas, but very great? Joking with him. And then he started laughing, and then I said, but actually you've done more austerity in your life than maybe I will be able to manage in many lifetimes. It's amazing how when we get spiritual names, they also mean something. In that name is a message, either an instruction or sometimes it may be an indication of what's to come. But definitely whether Tapas Prabhu took it as an instruction or an indication, definitely his life was about transcendental austerity. Of course, in our line, austerity is not necessarily so much promoted. Be austere. But austerity is promoted in a very, very specific way. The Bhagavatam tells us, Nayam deho deha brajam nirloke kastan kaman arhate vidbhujam ye tapo divyam putra kayena satvam sudyad brahma sokyam tvanantam. Rishabdeva is explaining that one should engage in the type of austerities that will allow them to serve Krishna in a very, very beautiful way. And by performing such austerities, one will gain transcendental happiness. So that's what Tapas Prabhu did. But today I wanted to read another verse from the Bhagavatam because I said this to Tapas Prabhu actually. I said, this verse reminds me of you. not just because it has the word tapa in the Sanskrit, but because I feel it very much symbolizes his life. So this is a very, very beautiful verse. It's from the 8th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it takes place in the pastime of the demigods and the demons churning the milk ocean. And as you know, when the demigods and the demons churn the milk ocean, then one of the things that comes out is the poison. And that poison is so powerful, that poison is so destructive, that poison is so potent that it can inundate and destroy entire species of lives. And therefore, Lord Shiva, what he does is he decides to ingest that poison. And as he ingests the poison into his neck, as you know, goes blue. And therefore, Lord Shiva is known as Nilakant, because he took that poison. And then what happens in glorification of Lord Shiva, who took the poison, in order to save everyone else from the poison, this verse is cited. Tapyante lokatapena sadhava prayasojana paramaradhanam tadhi purushasya khilatmanaha. Translation. It is said that great personalities almost always accept voluntary suffering because of the suffering of people in general. This is considered the highest method of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present in everyone's heart. This very beautiful verse is saying that if you want to know how advanced the Vaishnav is, just see how much suffering are they willing to voluntarily accept. Not because someone told them, not because it was forced upon them, but because they voluntarily say, I will accept this suffering. The greatness of a Vaishnav is measured by how much voluntary suffering they are willing to take in order for others to be relieved of suffering. And then when we think of someone like Tapas Prabhu's life, so much voluntary suffering. The Sankirtan devotees who just went out in minus temperatures for hours every single day, for days on end, long marathons, begging, taking nothing for themselves, and just going the extra mile in a joyful spirit to serve the mission of their spiritual master and Srila Prabhupada. How much voluntary suffering? Who would do that? Just stand on a cold street for hours and hours and hours, for days and days, begging people who often were just neglectful and sometimes even abusive. This is a saint. No one else can do this. Then how much Tapas Prabhu took responsibility for the movement of ISKCON. Being a manager, being a president, being a leader is not easy. Once I spoke to our temple president, Shri Dharma Prabhu, who was president at the Manor, and I was speaking to him and I said, Shri Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada said, in the spiritual world, we'll also have ISKCON. He said, I hope I'm not going to be the temple president there. Because it's not easy. If you do this, people criticize you. If you do that, people criticize you. If you don't do anything, people criticize you. So much negativity, so much pressure, so much expectation, so much complexity. But the devotees take it on because they realize if I take on this responsibility, then so many more people can be facilitated in their devotional service, and therefore let me do it. Let me take that responsibility. So all this austerity, all this transcendental, voluntary accepting of suffering in order to relieve others from their suffering, this is a saintly person. And therefore, Vaishnavas are the most valuable in the world. Dhananjaya Prabhu, disciple of Srila Prabhupada, was given that name at his initiation, Dhananjaya, which means the winner of wealth. No pressure. But one time he was feeling the pressure. Srila Prabhupada gave me the name, the winner of wealth. Maybe I'm supposed to bring lots of wealth to the Hare Krishna movement. So one time he was reading the Bhagavatam, and then he came to Prabhupada. He said, Prabhupada, I've been reading the Bhagavatam, and in the Bhagavatam it says that there's a mountain of gold. Prabhupada said, yes. He said, Prabhupada, do you know where it is? Prabhupada said, yes. He said, Prabhupada, can you tell me where it is? Prabhupada said, yes. And then Prabhupada looked at him and said, why do you want to know where it is? And Dhananjaya Prabhu said, because I want to go there and I won't take much, I'll just take a little bit. And I'll bring it back and I'll use it for our transcendental Krishna consciousness movement, because we could do with some gold. And Prabhupada looked back at him and said, rather than bringing 20 or 30 kgs of gold, bring back 20 or 30 devotees, because devotees are more valuable than gold. It doesn't matter what money, what infrastructure, what arrangements, all of that is activated by the Vaishnavas. Actually, the Vaishnavas are not just like gold. They're more valuable than gold because Vaishnavas are like a touchstone. Everything they touch turns to gold. But you know what? Vaishnavas are even more valuable than a touchstone that turns everything to gold, because Vaishnavas are a special type of touchstone that make more touchstones. Because Vaishnavas touch people's lives, and then those individuals become touched and then touch many, many more people's lives. And like that, the Vaishnavas are creating a whole network of spreading of devotion. In the Madhurya Kadambini, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is asking the question, how does bhakti begin? And then he goes on a kind of conversation, giving different answers and then refuting them. So he says, how does bhakti begin? Simple. Because of good fortune. Okay, good answer. Can you give more detail? And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, yes, one begins bhakti because of the good fortune that in the previous life they already performed bhakti. So that's a good question. But then the next question is, good answer. But the next question is, how did they begin bhakti in that life? Well, that's simple, because they did it in the life before. Okay, but how did they begin it in that life? Then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says there must have been a point where they began. And how did it begin? And he says maybe it began because they performed some pious activity, some charity, some philanthropy, some ritualistic, positive, pious act, some pious deed. But then he says, no, that can't be the answer, because how can something material activate something spiritual? So he says it can't be that your bhakti began because you did something pious. It's not powerful enough. He said maybe we began our journey because we got grace, we got mercy from Krishna. Krishna is not material. Krishna is outside the jurisdiction, and Krishna can bestow anything. So maybe the reason we began our bhakti journey was because Krishna gave us his mercy. And then he looks at that answer and he says, but it doesn't make sense, because Krishna, samoham, sarva bhuteshu, to all living entities, he's equal. So why would he give it to some and not to others? He said, so it can't be that we began our bhakti journey because of Krishna's mercy. And then he says, maybe we began our bhakti journey because we met a devotee. And he said, yes, that makes sense. Krishna bhakti janma mula hoya sadhu sang. Krishna prema janma teho puna mukhya ang. Kaviraj Goswami says the janma mula, the root cause of the awakening of devotion, hoya sadhu sang, is that one achieved the association of a devotee. And because a devotee appeared in your life, maybe they were your family member, maybe they were a colleague, maybe they were just someone on Sankirtan, or maybe it was a book you picked up and you got the association of Srila Prabhupada. But somewhere along the line you must have come in contact with a devotee, otherwise you couldn't have begun this journey. And therefore Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says the Vaishnavas are the most valuable in the world because only they can activate the journey back to Krishna, back home, back to Godhead. No devotees, no chance. More devotees, more chance. And many devotees, many chances. Therefore, the whole purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement is to make many devotees so that many more people will have a chance to begin this beautiful journey back home, back to Krishna. So, the Vaishnavas are always making themselves available. You may think, who am I? I'm just a small devotee, I'm an insignificant devotee, but you carry bhakti in your heart as a result of meeting a devotee. And therefore you have the power to ignite that within someone, because only bhakti can create bhakti. And therefore the most realized Vaishnavas, they make themselves available for as many people as possible in as wide a way as possible. And Tapas Prabhu's life was that. From the practically the moment he joined, 1982? 1982. I was born in 1981. And it's inconceivable for me to think that for the entirety of my time on this planet, there was an individual who was just making themselves available to help people, who was voluntarily accepting suffering to ensure that other people in the world don't have to suffer. So we're very, very fortunate to have encountered such a personality. We're very, very fortunate to have been able to hear from such a personality and render some service to such a personality. And on days like this, we remind each other, don't take the Vaishnavas for granted. It's so easy to look around at each other and find faults. It's so easy to look around each other and become very, very familiar. It's so easy to forget how rare each Vaishnav is. And Tapas Prabhu liked jokes. So I will share a poem with you for his pleasure. I think he'll appreciate it. The poem is called Who Will Go Back to Godhead? I was shocked, confused, bewildered as I entered Goloka's door, not by the beauty of it all, nor the lights or the decor, but it was the devotees in Goloka that I was amazed to see. I knew them all on earth, but they didn't seem to have much bhakti. There stood my Sankirtan leader, the one who stole Krishna's money twice. Next to him was my old TP, the one who wasn't very nice. And there was Krishna Das, who never preached, who seemed so insincere, was sitting ecstatically with Krishna, to whom he seemed so dear. I asked my guru, what's going on here? Of this I don't know what to make. How did all these devotees end up here? Did someone make a mistake? And why is everyone so quiet? Why is everyone so serious? Give me a clue. Quiet, Prabhu, my guru said. They're all in shock. No one thought they'd be seeing you. So it's like that. We kind of look at each other and we think each other are very average. And if there's one thing I've learned, I've not learned many things, still learning. But one thing I've learned is that we underestimate the Vaishnavas so much. If you look at someone like Tapas Prabhu's life and you just described it, not as a Hare Krishna, just as his activities, it would be enough for someone to receive a sainthood. Who does that? Who prays every single day for so many hours? Who goes and begs on the street and tells people about God for so many hours? Who is willing to live in such simple, austere conditions just for the service of God? No one does this. But sometimes in the Hare Krishna movement, we forget how special the devotees are. So let us never forget how wonderful these devotees are. They are the hope, and it would be nice to hear from some of you, but let me just share one final thing that's on my mind. Tapas Prabhu was very much a foundation of the yatra here, so much preaching. And naturally we feel there's such a vacuum now that he's not here. But somehow or other Srila Prabhupada's movement must continue expanding. The best way to keep Tapas Prabhu alive, the best way to keep our acharyas very much present is to keep expanding their wishes. One sociologist, he said, hard times create strong people. And strong people create good times. And good times can create weak people. And weak people create hard times. He kind of analyzes life like this. And I was looking at that and I thought the Hare Krishna movement has to be the exception to that. I think the generation of Mataji and Prabhu, they did incredible, unspeakable sacrifices. They faced really hard times. And therefore you can see in their character, they've become so strong. And because of their strength, they've created much better times, good times. And now we have to build on those sacrifices and make even better times. Go from strength to strength, keep expanding the Hare Krishna movement. It was wonderful to be in Stockholm today. We just kind of did a quick Harinam. And people are waiting. People are open. People like us. And people are ready to hear. And so let's keep making ourselves available. Let's follow in the footsteps of these great devotees. And let's keep them alive by doing what they dedicated their life to. And in this way, I think this will be the most beautiful offering to Tapas Prabhu. So you're very fortunate to have such a gem in your community. And when you go different places around the world, then you think of a city, and when you think of a city, you think of a name. Like one time Prabhupada said, Mumbai means Giriraj, because he always remembered Giriraj Swami. And so I think Stockholm will always, for many, many generations, be synonymous with Tapas Prabhu and his good wife, Rajavati Mataji. And let's keep expanding the dreams of Srila Prabhupada here and participate. As Tapas Prabhu said, it's too inspiring. I want to stay. But here we are. We're able to be part of it. We're able to be part of what Tapas Prabhu wanted to stay here for. So thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak, purify myself, glorify the Vaishnavas, and remember that we're blessed. We're blessed with so many gems in our movement. Hare Krishna. His Grace Tapas Prabhu ki Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So I was feeling it would be nice, we can have a little bit of sharing as well. Maybe some of you would like to share something, an interaction, a memory of Tapas Prabhu. Perhaps if you'd like to make any comment or ask a question, then have some time.